Welcome to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast. As always, I'm joined by my trusted sidekick, Jacob Klucas, in which neither one of us could be any happier to the fact that sports are back. And I'm loving every second of it. I'm sure Klucas is just like me right now and just been watching games left and right. Klucas,
Hey,
what you
I,
been
w-
watching a couple days?
I was happy, opening day for the Indians. Shane Bieber tosses a franchise high 14K strikes on opening day. So,
I
I
could
was
be
I was a little shocked. Actually, I figured Cleveland would have went with Clevinger as their ace this year, but they decided to throw Bieber out there. You can't really go wrong with either or. But hey,
I would say I think both of our teams, I'm being a St. Louis Cardinal fan, both of us looked good on the opening day. We went with Flaherty as our Jack Flaherty as our main ace, and I think that's just a great decision. Very good, young, talented pitcher, good arm. There was a lot of good stuff. Gave up 2 runs yesterday, but we won 5-4 over the Pirates. And but the one Cardinal that's really stood out to me as far as like just how he's played and the scrimmages and just how he's swinging the bat right now is Paul DeYoung. Hit a couple home runs in the tune-up games. Hit a homer yesterday. He played well in spurts last year, but if he can just put it together for a full season, that's a scary bat hitting out of the shortstop position. So I'm pretty excited. It definitely helps when the Cardinals didn't go out and make a big signing that they were expected to. We all know about the big rumors surrounding Nolan Arenado going to the Cardinals. Don't know if that's going to happen. Would love to see it, but we'll see.
I'm still slightly upset the Indians let go of Puig, but
Of
it's
who?
whatever at this point. Yeah, Yasiel Puig, but it's whatever at this point.
You say his name weird. It's Puig.
Puig, whatever.
But anyways, we got a lot of topics to talk about today. Obviously, with sports being back and obvious that recruiting. But what Klucas has been looking forward to all week is that he has made his own mock NBA 2020 draft. And we're going to jump right into it. So, Klucas, let's get to it.
Now let's keep in mind, obviously, this is based off how the standings are as of today. No, obviously we'll have the standings will be updated, obviously, as when these 8 games start back up, they'll obviously be, scrambled up because, obviously, Washington, who's in my lottery selection right now, could very easily fall out of the lottery if they were to slide into that 8 spot in the East before this is over. Several different scenarios that could happen, but this is just based off right now what we know of record-wise right now. I used online, it's called NBA Real GM. It's a simulated lottery. It does the same, lottery percent chances as just like the NBA draft. Simulated it, and we went off what it said is what I went off of. So let's go right into it. So based off the simulated lottery, the number 1 pick in the NBA draft was owned by the Atlanta Hawks. And if you are the Hawks and you've already got guys like John Collins and Trae Young, Clint Capella, and younger guys like DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish, you get that number 1 pick. That is a complete valuable asset for you for either to take another stud or as a trade piece. So with that number 1 pick, now, keep in mind when I do my picks as well, I also do based off positional needs / best available player. So,
Right.
Number 1 pick in the NBA draft for the Atlanta Hawks, stay home Georgia boy, Anthony Edwards.
I don't have too much beef with it. Obviously, do I think Anthony Edwards is the best player in this draft? No. But as far as best fit, team needs, I think it's perfect. Like you said, they have, Trey as a point. As far as the bigs go, John Collins and Clint Capella, there's not really a lot of need for the James Wisemans of the world. So, I don't have too much issue with it. Anthony Edwards is an extremely talented player, draws comparisons to a young James Harden. Will he be James Harden? It's yet to be seen, but the talent's there. So.
Yep. Anthony Edwards coming off a freshman year at Georgia, averaged 19 points, 5 rebounds, shot about 40% from the field. 29% from 3, but don't let that 3-point percentage, scare you. He can absolutely shoot. More so it was just, the amount of shots he was taking at Georgia that kind of rendered the percentage. But he could shoot. He could flat out score the basketball. And when you're looking at the Hawks, yes, like you said, you have your Trae Young. You have, prior to the Capella trade, James Wiseman probably would have been the obvious pick for the center position. But, you have Trae Young, you have Collins, you have Capella. Between Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, you've got that 3 spot pretty much, set. You're really missing that 2 spot. And I like Kevin Huerter. I like him more coming off the bench. I don't think he's a starter.
Sure.
And with Anthony Edwards, yes, you'll have your questions of Anthony Edwards, Trae Young backcourt. How well does that work offensively with that being 2 scoring type guys? You'll have your questions defensively. I think Anthony Edwards defensively, the potential is there. It's just whether he wants to bring it out or not and wants to use it in full force. So I like the pick. Obviously, I made it. So second overall pick landed with the Detroit Pistons.
The one I think most of us are wanting to see right now.
So the Detroit Pistons, we can almost pretty much say since Chauncey Billups left Detroit's really missed a point guard.
I mean, are you willing to disrespect Reggie Jackson like that?
I am willing to disrespect Reggie Jackson like that. They've really missed a point guard. They've had, for the most part, every other position covered at one point or another outside of the point guard position. And so I have LaMelo Ball going number 2 overall to the Detroit Pistons.
Which I think is arguably the most intriguing pick in this class, because we all know about LaMelo Ball. I mean, he's been very heavily surrounded by the media from the time he was, 15, 16 years old. I mean, played at Chino Hills, went overseas, played professionally, comes back to the United States to attempt to play in college, but obviously was ruled ineligible for the
Played
NCAA.
high school again when he came back over.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah. But was trying to get re-eligible to play in college, but obviously being that he did play at a professional level, that ruled him ineligible from the NCAA. Very widely talked about prospect, a lot of talent. I'm very up in the air on how I feel about LaMelo. I'll let you get into that first before I chime in.
Okay, so let's backtrack because, everybody always likes to say, oh, you don't, back then you had a different opinion, and obviously opinions change over time. When LaMelo was that 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, I was not a fan of LaMelo. I didn't like I'm going to come down, call my shot at half court, way into the beginning of the game. And I didn't like the snowbirding to get his 90 points when he got it. I wasn't a fan of that. But over time, he's developed. And obviously, growing into a 6'7" frame has really helped him out.
Absolutely.
But you're when you watch him, you can see it now. He's got that. He's not necessarily as good, has as good a court vision or as good as a passer as Lonzo, but you can see it. You can see he's got that talent.
He's a more natural scorer than Lonzo too. That's the main
he's. And if you're looking at it from an all-around player perspective, and you could take this as a hot take, I don't really think it is. LaMelo's the better out of the 3 as an all-around player of the 3 brothers. Lonzo, I think, is the better defensive player and passer. LiAngelo, who's still trying to work his way into the NBA, I think is the best shooter of the 3. And then you have LaMelo, who kind of has a little bit of it all. He's got the defensive potential, to play the passing lanes, to play defense. He can shoot the ball. Scores the ball very well, rebounds very well for 6'7" guard. What it comes down to still with LaMelo, and like we said, it's gotten better over time. But what it comes down to LaMelo is shot IQ, and that's what's going to take him in the NBA from a solid player to a really good player, because LaMelo's got that potential to be your 17, 20 point per game guy and also give you 8, 10 assists, 6, 7 rebounds and be a really valuable asset on your team. But, you take that shot IQ into play and he wants to take the shots that he has in the past and it could take him to either a bench role or just a okay player. So I think that's what LaMelo needs to work on going into the NBA, going into this draft process, is shot IQ. Learning when to shoot, when not to shoot, learning when you're not hot or when your other teammates are hot, learning how to use your teammates to get yourself involved. So I think those are some things that LaMelo's got to learn going into this draft.
And I hate to bring this up, though, but anytime you talk about one of the Ball brothers, the question's always going to come up, how much of an impact is LeVar going to be on him? Because, I mean, with Lonzo's stint in L.A., LeVar was very heavily, mediaized by, his comments saying that Lonzo's already better than Steph Curry and, just taught is John left and right and just constantly being around Lonzo. Now, look, we can make the case that Lonzo needed to get out of L.A. just to get in a different scene, but what I've noticed is that Lonzo has really flourished since he's kind of separated himself from LeVar. Do we have those same questions about LaMelo is my question.
And those are always going to be questions that surround them as long. Now, I will give LeVar credit here recently. You haven't heard a whole lot from him. Every now and then he'll appear on a show and maybe say one or two things that are just like, oh, well, there's another LeVar quote. But I think for the most part, I think he realized, especially with Lonzo, that what he was saying was more so hurting his son than hyping his son up. And I think he's realized that. And I think he really realized that with LaMelo, when LaMelo was doing the things that he was at Chino Hills, and then he started to realize, you can't be doing these type of things. And honestly, from a parenting standpoint, I think it was smart for him to do what he did in terms of pulling his son overseas basketball. I think that right there is what matured LaMelo into what the player he is today, is
Sure.
Going overseas and playing with grown-ups every day, playing against these guys and realizing I'm really not as good as, I hype myself up to be, or my dad may hype myself up to be. I'm really not that good. And I think it's made him into the player he is today. So there was that, and then going against those grown men last year in Australia, he still managed to average 17 points per game. He averaged right around 8 rebounds, averaged right around 7 assists. Shooting numbers, kind of the same with Anthony, like we talked about with Anthony Edwards, the shot IQ and the amount of shots he was taking. So don't let the percentages fool you in terms of he can't shoot. But, I mean, everything is there for LaMelo. It's just, can he pull it together?
My next question comes with LaMelo, you can obviously run him at point. You can run him at 2. So my question is, what made you believe that Anthony Edwards would be a better fit for that number 1 overall spot than to pair Trae Young with LaMelo Ball in the backcourt?
I thought about it, honestly did. But when I'm looking at it in terms of Anthony Edwards can play, I think LaMelo is better with the ball in his hands. And I think in terms of we all know Trae Young is better with the ball in his hands. He can make the pass, he can take the shot. He's better with the ball in his hands. I think Anthony Edwards is better suited to play off the ball with Trae Young than LaMelo would be. So I feel like that kind of played a part into it. And so that's why I felt like not saying Anthony Edwards is a better off the ball player than he is on the ball. Anthony Edwards is great with the ball in his hands, but I think he's better suited to play off ball than LaMelo is.
Sure. And now we're getting to that number 3 spot, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to let you take all of this because I really have not watched him play a lot. So I'm going to let you get into 3.
So with the 3rd pick, if you're outside of LaMelo, who's obviously coming from Australia, we're gonna have our first international player. And I've watched his tapes. I've read scouting reports on him, and I'm actually higher on him potential wise than anybody in this draft. And it's Denny Avdija. I have going number 3 overall to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Denny Avdija. When you look at his numbers, let's get out of looking at international player numbers. We all know international players don't play a whole lot, especially when they come over. They're playing 8 to 10 minutes a game. Their numbers aren't going to equal what you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at Denny Avdija last year over in Israel, he only averaged 4 points per game. He only averaged 2.6 rebounds. He was only averaging 8 minutes a game. Kind of the same thing when you look at his shooting numbers. Like one number that drew to me at first, he shot 56% from the free throw line. But when I went and looked at his numbers, he was 10 of 18 total for the year from the free throw line. That's not a large enough sample size for me to say, well, he can't shoot free throws.
Right. Being that I'm wearing the Duke gear and everything, I want to use an example of that is look at Vernon Carey this past year. You know, early in the season, he got off to a horrendous start from the free throw line, but as the season progressed, you know, he started knocking him down. And even though, I mean, he finished the season at a 65% clip, a lot of that goes back to the fact that he started the season so poorly and was shooting sub 50. So, I mean, when, like Klucas is saying, when you have a small sample size like that, it can either hurt or help your efficiency ratings in a lot of ways. And when you're grading the stats of an international prospect, just like what Klucas is saying, this is where the per 40-minute stat really comes into play. Because, like you said, you only get they play a completely different game over there. And like Klucas says,
over there at international play, they play it based off of, it's not, they don't necessarily, yes, they're going to put the best product on the floor. Any basketball team's going to, but they play more veterans than they do the young kids, no matter how good you are. So when I'm looking at Denny Avdija, he's very good scorer, can take people off the dribble. He's a good facilitator, good rebounder, stands at about 6'7", 6'8". And when I'm looking at what Cleveland has, you look at Darius Garland, you look at Colin Sexton, you have Kevin Love, Andre Drummond, you're missing that 3 spot. And, obviously you haven't had that 3 spot since LeBron left. And even when LeBron wasn't there before, that 3 spot was always a void for the Cavs. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you have to fill those shoes right away. You're not going to be able to fill LeBron's shoes. No. But to have a solid player there at that 3 spot is what you need. And somebody like Denny Avdija, who's going to have to play next to a Darius Garland and a Colin Sexton, who are score-first players. Darius Garland can facilitate, is a good facilitator, don't get me wrong, but they're score-first players. And so having a guy like Denny Avdija who can come in, can facilitate, can give you, 13, 14, 15 points per game, also give you about 6 rebounds. He's what Cleveland needs. The only issues I have with him, his defensive motor. He's a solid, he's an okay defensive player, but his motor is not always there to want to play defense. Second, is shooting, 3-point shooting. Form is there. It's not a broken shot. I just think he just needs to work on consistently shooting in the gym every day to get it down. So Denny Avdija, like I said, as far as potential-wise, I'm higher on him than I am a lot of guys, or pretty much everybody in this draft. I think he's got that potential to be the best player in the draft. So I really like him, and it also helps that he's going to be playing for my favorite in this draft-wise. He'd be playing for my favorite team. So there's that. So we'll move on to the number 4 pick, where we have the Golden State Warriors. I have them taking James Wiseman. Now let me set the record straight with this. I feel like if Golden State, if they don't have a chance to draft James Wiseman, if James Wiseman is off the board or whatever, whenever Golden State picks, I think they trade this pick. I think the only way they keep their pick in draft is if James Wiseman is the one available. If he's not available, I think they trade this pick for whatever they can. To obviously get solid players around them. But when you look at Golden State throughout the years, every position they've had above average or all-star players. The center position has been the one spot that they've kind of just played musical chairs with. And, because Golden State's system works, you can do that because a lot of guys just can fill that void, and you can put a lot of different guys. And it works. So when you're looking at James Wiseman, he's not a dominant low post guy. You don't have to feed him in the post. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands in the post. He's a pick and roll and defensive guy and rebounds. And he would fit in perfectly with Golden State. So, elite rim protector, because what you're getting out of James Wiseman right away in the NBA is you're going to get a rim protector and a rebounder. And that's what Golden State needs. And then going into the future, they can develop him into more. So I like the Wiseman pick at Golden State.
I would have to agree as well, too. I mean, like a lot of you said, I love the musical chairs reference because it's been the reality. I mean, they've kind of transitioned to the small ball to where they'll have even Draymond run 5, in their first championship. I believe they had Bogut starting at the 5. I mean, but that's the one position that they didn't have a consistent starter at. And Wiseman, he I can't disagree with you at all. He fits perfectly because he doesn't need the ball in his hands. He can catch, he can come in, set those high post screens for Curry and Clay to come off of, and then just cut to the rim. And if Curry and Clay don't have the shot, they can just throw the lob to Wiseman. And I mean, with how elite of an athlete he is, he's gonna get it. So
he's also a decent enough shooter to play that pick and pop on the mid range, to where he could pull up on that mid range jump shot. So that's where another factor where he fits in perfectly. But like I said about the defense, he fits right in defensively. Elite rim protector, rebounder. It's almost a match made in heaven for Golden State.
I mean, it really is.
I know we're tired of hearing that, a match made in heaven for Golden State, but it's the reality of what's to come. So,
and I think that also goes into your point about how he doesn't have to really dominate right away, that he can develop over the years in Golden State's system. Because as of right now, he has a good shot, an improving shot, but it's not all the way there yet. But for him to make an impact right away, he doesn't need to. So the older
and we know on that team is going to give him every bit of confidence to shoot the ball when he's open, to work on it, and they want him to be able to shoot.
And plus, they're just a well-coached organization as well, too, with Steve Kerr and Mark Jackson before him, too. I mean, you look at some of the guys whose career they've really turned around. I mean, JaVale McGee is the one that stands out the most. I mean, prior to coming to Golden State, he was the Shaqtin' a Fool Hall of Famer, just making dumb play after dumb play. I mean, he really didn't have a signature moment in his NBA career prior to his rookie summer league to where he was in a lot of ways outplaying Blake Griffin. But past that, he comes to Golden State. He really learns how to play smart basketball and learns how to use his size and his length to his advantage. And with Wiseman's a lot more talented than McGee is. So, I mean, I just see it. It's going to be a good fit. I think if there's no such thing as a 100% safe pick, but to me, this is the safest pick in the draft.
And I would agree. So number 5 to the Timberwolves, another kind of perfect fit, I believe.
I'll say
Obi Toppin.
Favorite player in the draft, but continue.
Obi Toppin to the Timberwolves, and I think he's another perfect fit for Minnesota. Minnesota's really, really desperately needed that 4 next to Cat, a guy that can stretch the floor, a guy that's going to play defense, can play defense on ball, can play off ball, can score alongside a Cat, will rebound. It's another perfect fit in my opinion for Minnesota, and you're getting the National Player of the Year. You're getting the guy that averaged 20 points per game. He averaged 8 rebounds. He averaged almost 2 blocks per game. And the one thing I love about these type of guys that come out of college, I love the guys that take a lot of shots and they're not just in the paint. They're taking threes, they're taking mid range, and you can still shoot 60% from the field.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're taking smart shots. You're taking good shots. That's what that tells me. He's also not a bad three-point shooter. 39% from 3 last year. Very, very good from the 3. 70% free throw. He's a solid free throw shooter. He's a great defender. I think next to a Cat, Cat who we do question his defense at times. I think this past year he silenced the haters just a little bit about his defense. About showing that he is willing to play defense. He is willing to put time on that defensive side. But now you put Obi Toppin next to him, and I think that helps with helps improve his defense along with Minnesota's in general.
I'm going to disagree with the defensive side because watching Obi Toppin play a lot at Dayton is that he was actually very lackadaisical on the defensive side of the ball. He, in a lot of ways, I had the same issues on the defensive side of the ball with Sorry, there was a wolf outside my door. Okay, it's gone now, but very lackadaisical.
No pun intended that we're talking about the Timberwolves.
Right. I mean, it's just like talk about just matches made in heaven. We're talking about the Timberwolves, and then there's like a wolf just walk outside my door. Okay, but anyways, I have the same issues with Obi Toppin on the defensive side of the ball that, not to use another Duke reference, but Marvin Bagley had. It's not that he's not a capable defender. It's not that he doesn't have defensive potential on his side, but he has a very low defensive IQ at this point in his career. But what I do love about Obi Toppin is that he was not a very highly rated recruit coming out of high school. He's had to work to get to where he's at, right? To get to, the recognition that he's getting right now and to go on to win Player of the Year. He's, as far as his skill set, I see a lot, and yes, I know that for, the NBA fans that were a big fan of basketball in the early 2000s, I know this is a big statement, but I see a lot of a young Amari Stoudemire and Obi Toppin prior to his first knee surgery. And, I think that play style is perfect to pair with Cat in the front court. And with how well he does shoot the ball and with, how well he can handle the ball, I think with Toppin, you give somebody that can slide between the 4 and the 3, just depending on, whether was it Okogie or Josh Okogie, whether he has to sit out or something. I mean, that's just a versatile guy you can play at the 3 or the 4 position that can get you 20 and 10 a night. So I'd see it as an absolute win. The one thing, but I got to go back. The one thing that he does need to improve on is his defensive IQ, but that's only going to come from watching tape, watching different pick and rolls and different offensive sets and just learning the game.
Yep. And so the 6th overall pick, moving on, the New York Knicks. And once again, the Knicks lose out on who they want. We all know. Oh, my goodness. We'll have a little breaking news here. Are you ready for this, Les?
I'm ready.
The New York Jets trade Jamal Adams to the Seattle Seahawks for a 4th-round pick to Seattle for 2 first rounds and a 3rd-round pick.
I did not expect that at all. I knew the Jets were going to trade him because Jamal Adams wants out. I thought I was almost 95% sold that he was going to go to Dallas. His home. He's from Texas. Always said if he wants to go anywhere else, that's kind of where he wants to go. But
made the comment to a Cowboys fan earlier in the year, "Come get me." Oh, my goodness.
Is the Legion of Boom coming back, though?
Seattle. You're going to have Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams just roaming in your backfield now.
And don't forget both of the Griffin brothers, too, back there. Oh, man. The Legion of Boom is coming back. And, of course, they always got the old reliable Bobby Wagner on that side of the ball. Man, that's the thing about the Seahawks. I've liked a lot of the moves that they made in recent years, but the only problem with that is, do they have enough cap space to bring in some offensive linemen to protect Russell Wilson? Because at the end of the day, that's how they're going to win games. But honestly, I love it, though. I think it's a great move.
What breaking news right here that's the first true breaking news that has happened in the middle of our podcast.
Well, to be fair, on our very first podcast, we're talking about cherry spitting, and that's just where we were at in the sports world. So I mean, but yeah, oh man, Jamal Adams, very big on Jamal Adams since he was his time at LSU. I mean, a play that stands out to me, and of course being a Louisville native, and I got to rub it into our Louisville faithful that watch the show. But during the Citrus Bowl against U of L, you have Lamar rushing out to the left, and Jamal Adams just runs him down in the open field and just tackles him, just showing off the speed and athleticism and his nose for the ball. So, I mean, big fan of Jamal Adams. I think he's going to do great things in Seattle, and Seattle just got that much better. We all know they're a consistent playoff team as long as Russell's the quarterback, but the more they add on the defensive side of the ball, and hopefully they can get to where they can sign offensive linemen, they can get back to the Super Bowl. I don't see any reason why.